Fantastic. Thank you so much, and good afternoon, everyone. This is quite a challenging but important topic. And I want to start with a quote from Maria Ressa. I fear she's been overquoted already in the forum, but you can never overquote her. And this is a quote from her capacity as co-chair of the International Fund for Public Interest Media. And she said it a few weeks ago at the Paris Peace Forum. Information integrity, discerning fact and fiction, is the mother of all battles. Lose this, and we lose everything. Without a shared reality, we cannot solve existential problems this forum, insert this forum, addresses. We cannot have electoral integrity, we can't have journalism, and we can't have democracy. And I would add, we cannot have the 4 E's either. And a core weapon or tool on this battlefield is artificial intelligence, especially generative AI. And AI can and is creating a range of opportunities. I think it's important to also acknowledge that, but it's also creating Herculean challenges in a number of sectors and in society as a whole. It's undermining information ecosystems, independent media, the oxygen for democracy, and threatening human rights, including the right to human dignity and to women and girls. So I'd like to start by setting the stage by understanding the nature of the challenge. And I'm going to turn to you, Natalie, as our data and analytics executive. Large language models are only as capable and accurate as the data sets that feed them, and that data is often not contextualized, leaves out whole parts of the world's population, including marginalized communities, women and girls, and many local languages. Can you explain to us why this is happening and how power is being reinforced and reshaped by the data?
Yes, yeah, happy to do so. First of all, thank you for having me. The challenge is really, it's not even an accident, it is actually almost economic design that is leading to that imbalance of data. When you're thinking about foundational models, these are the models that are leading to tools like ChatGPT, Gemini, Grok, Claude, to make everybody happy and naming them all. Ultimately, all of generating these foundational models costs hundreds of millions of dollars. Not kind of like tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars. And you can imagine only a handful of companies have that level of money and have that capability. So by that, you already limit it really just to a handful of companies, the Googles, OpenAIs, Metas, and XAIs of this world that can really generate these type of models. That is already a limitation. Now, strangely enough, they're all starting at the same point, and that is they're scraping the internet. They're taking really all of the internet because that's a large set of information that is out there for free or seemingly out there for free, and they're just ingesting that, hoovering it up, ingesting it. And that is the foundation or the basis for the models that they're building then on top of that. Of course, there's a lot of things that they're doing with the data, but the inherent challenge starts really there because the internet is not perfect. The internet is not representative. In many cases, the internet is overrepresenting English language. It is overrepresenting Western perspective. It is also overrepresenting people that have had the resources and the access to publish over the past 30 years. So it is really one of those parts where you say, okay, you have ultimately by that already a very specific set of information that is in there. That results ultimately in a underrepresentation of minorities, of indigenous languages, of smaller groups, but it also reinforces in many cases the stereotypes that we are experiencing within on the internet, often that we're seeing even in social media really heavily perpetuated. So that is one part of how these biases and flaws are coming to pass in those models. Now, on top of that, the challenging part is after those foundational models are built, everybody says, okay, I don't have to start completely from scratch. I'll just build on top of those models. Yay, whoop-de-doo, but by that, you're basically just perpetuating the issue. Because even when you're trying to maybe remove some of the flaws, you might not get it completely. You might not counterbalance all of the limitations and biases. So everything that is built on top of those models is now carrying on all of those biases and limitations. That is one area that is helping or pushing that power in the wrong direction. And now we have an additional new threat because these large language models are generating an enormous amount of new content now. And that new content is now pushed online. It then gets on the internet and is getting included into the training data of new models. And so we're creating really, truly a feedback loop, and that all leads really to those biases and to the perpetuation of it, and then the imbalance of the power.
Thank you so much. Now that we understand the quagmire of how this works, I'd love to turn to the Nigerian context with you, Adewunmi. Another clear emerging danger from that description we got is that LLMs can fuel disinformation. And we see this a great deal in our work at the International Fund. AI-driven narratives are accelerating bias and discrimination, and digital gender-based violence in particular. Could you tell us a bit more about how these harms are showing up in your work and in Nigeria?
Yes, for sure. I mean, I think that one important thing to know is that AI is not just facilitating gender-based violence, but it's facilitating it at scale and at speed. Right. If you're very familiar with AI news and AI literature, there was a report out of Nigeria some weeks ago of how Nigerian men were using Grok, a model or a tool of Twitter and X, to essentially undress women, to redress them, to spin them, rotate them. And these are women that do not live in Nigeria, not just Nigeria. They're Nigerian women, they're Black American women. And so what you see basically is that it is not just about the tool itself. It is also that there is a lot of baggage, anonymity, pseudonymity, jurisdictional blur, and the entire, violence is on a global scale. So when I think of the Nigerian context, sometimes I can't limit it to Nigeria because Undress AI is a tool that Nigerian men have been using. The tool and the model was developed in California. The business jurisdiction of this product is in Taipei, right? The servers are in Singapore. Nigerians are using them targeting Americans and people in London. And so this is a global crisis, right? And I think that most of the women that were targeted by these tools essentially deleted their accounts. And it's very important to know that when women withdraw from public life, democracy loses perspective. It's a very important thing to know. And so when we think about what needs to happen and how we need to think about this problem, we basically need to think about it at the scale. So I think of it this way. When you use a prompt that generates 10 images under, let's say, a minute, and you send it to a WhatsApp group, and that WhatsApp group gets forwarded, in 1 minute or less than 5 minutes, this will be seen by 2,500 people. Now think about it in a day. And so the Nigerian context is backed by evidence. 3 in 5 Nigerian women have been attacked online, cyberbullied, doxxed, pornographic deepfakes. And what that really means to me is about 50 million people. So just imagine if the entire country of Spain, was being targeted online. That's the scale of the crisis.
Wow. Thank you. And I'd like to come back to that and to come back to the role of civil society in that solution in a moment. But let's turn first, thank you, to thinking about opportunities and solutions and this problem of scale. To turn to you, Maria. I mean, despite the obvious need for it and the fact that tech companies themselves are sometimes calling for it, countries fear regulation in case it stifles innovation. It's also in the description of this panel. And from your perspective at the Council of Europe, with your 46 member states, what are the most effective ways to ensure that global tech platforms take real responsibility for preventing and addressing that kind of technology-facilitated violence and discrimination against women and girls? And how can governments work together to ensure that technology and platforms are truly strengthen rather than undermine democracy?
Yeah, thank you for the question. It's very complex, and I could go on for the afternoon, but Council of Europe, indeed, as you said, is 46 member states, and it's intergovernmental organizations. So we are working with the governments of all these 46, but also beyond, because we have also observer states and partners for democracy, so it goes beyond Europe, our cooperation. And we are really, our main trends are defending human rights, democracy, and rule of law. And what we do, we actually set standards in different areas, and we do monitor their implementation, and we support member states or those who are party to convention to implement them. So we have, in a way, this convening power, which I think is very necessary, and what we heard yesterday and this morning also, that we need to convene all these different levels together. And to do it efficiently, as you ask, we are doing it really by including everybody. We work with, at the national, local level, we work with parliaments, with civil societies, and of course also more and more with the private sector, with business representatives. And I think this is really only way to be effective, to include everybody. And as you said before, this is really a transnational, global issue, so we have to address it in such a way. And also, where I think the difficulty today is how do we ensure accountability? And this is, of course, for the private sector. How do we bring them on board, and how we make sure that they are accountable? And now technology is developing so quick, it's moving so fast, and we cannot just sit behind and always follow the development. So I think this is important to note. But what we are doing at the Council of Europe, we are really trying to ensure that the human rights are at every level of this work, and also that all the artificial intelligence or technology are really integrating human rights in every level of their development, being design and so on and so forth. So I mentioned that we are developing standards at the Council of Europe, and there are two standards that I would really like to draw attention to. One of them is on countering violence against women and domestic violence. We often call it the Istanbul Convention. It's now it's 11 years old actually, and this is really a convention that was developed and based on positive or promising practices from different member states. It's a convention made in Europe, but it's not meant for Europe only, meaning that any country in the world can accede to it, but also use it as an inspiration in developing their own policies and strategies. So this convention is really looking at violence against women from the side of prevention, protection, prosecution, and also ensuring coordinated policies. So again, this convening power. And it is also especially listing technology-facilitated violence as one of the important points that need to be addressed. And since it was, I said, entered into force 11 years ago, but it was developed quite a few years before that. So we have now completed it also with the specific recommendation addressing how to address the technology-facilitated violence, really guiding member states, anybody, as I said, you don't need to be part of this convention to follow it. And another convention, which is even younger, only 1.5 years old, but hasn't entered yet into force because it still requires ratification, is the Framework Convention on Artificial Intelligence, Human Rights, Democracy and Rule of Law. And this is especially addressing the issues of ensuring that there is no discrimination, and also that human rights are actually built into the whole lifeline of artificial intelligence. But as we have seen, and as I mentioned before, that accountability is really where we see today the difficulty, and which is blocking in a way the access to justice. We are developing a recommendation that is especially focusing on the accountability and access to justice in the area of victims of violence of technology. So I think this is something that important. We are looking forward to come out hopefully end of this year. But I have spoken a lot about human rights, but I think democracy is really important. And here we have a huge challenge to democracy as well. Because if there is indeed this experience that we have been hearing, that women are getting chilling effect, they don't want to be in public life, in politics, democracy is having a huge backlash. So I think that's something we have to address very carefully as well. And there is also a civil society, I mean, they are doing amazing work. Many of them are here. And I think we have to all together, pull really together to make sure that we are speaking the same language. using the data that we have, as I said, we have from our monitoring mechanisms, because it's only data that we can use to counter the anti-rights movements and bring that forward. So I'm really looking forward to hear also from the next speaker, because I mentioned about women in politics, and to see how CIF can complete this need for access to justice.
Thank you so much. Yes, turning to the lived experience of you, Marinika, and this issue at the national level. This is clearly, as Maria noted, going to have a huge impact, and is having a huge impact on the fabric of democracy. For example, in the case of independent journalism, LLMs, as we've noted, are scraping data and removing links to sources. So traffic hitting news sites is now down 96%, I think, globally, as compared to traditional Google searches. And this obviously financially cripples those institutions and their ability to hold power to account. And this is also having an impact on the way in which and whether citizens engage critically with that information. So could you tell us more about how you've thought about this challenge and any solutions in your country, and in particular in your critical role as leader of the opposition in your country, in Serbia?
Thank you, and first of all, and thank you to the Reykjavik Global Forum for bringing us together here at a moment which is very important for global conversation about technology rights and democracy, and which has never been urgent. We all know that the influence of technology is faster than any our civic protections, and also the influence of social media is more deeply than any institutions we built. And for me is the key question, can democracy keep up? And I'll speak shortly about situation in my country. I come from Serbia. It's a small European country, but not in European Union. It's only candidate state with the authoritarian regime and the president that made from us country little Russia. I led the biggest opposition coalition list last 2 times in the last 2 election periods, and we obtained 24% of voters. But then the very brutal and aggressive war was started against me, because I'm the best target for authoritarian regime. I'm 3 in 1. I'm an opposition, I'm social democrat, and I'm a woman. And I'm a very loud woman. And as a former journalist, I'm a very persistent woman. Every time when I speak or I explain or I discover the corruption, because my focus is anti-corruption fight, the farm and thousands of fake accounts started to attack me, even my appearance, of course, me personally, my family also. And in democracy, technology is some kind of innovation. It means innovation, but in authoritarian regime, the technology is a weapon, and very murder and aggressive weapon. And we, as Democrats and people and politicians who don't want to use the insults and this and to continue and involve with them in this verbal war, sometimes it seems that we are weak or that we don't have a good response. and the citizens must choose between their truth and our truth, but the truth is the only one. And I think that democracy must fight in this global problem because this is not a fight for ethic moment on technology, but it's for democracy itself. My experience is very bad. And when I meet with you and other conference with a lot of great women, it's some kind of charging for me with energy and good experience, because in my country we think that we are alone, that nobody heard us, that nobody is interested in our problem, because I understand that Europe or European Union has other priorities. Of course, Ukraine and war in Ukraine is the first and first priority. But we must live our lives from day to day. And to be a woman leader in Serbia is very difficult, because we don't have the traditional media. We have the only one national broadcaster, and it's RTS, and they ignored us. The other 4 TV station is under the ruling part control, under the regime control, and they use and rebroadcasted this content from platform and social media. And you can see our faces very often, but without our voices, as some kind of mute movies. And because of that, of course, they targeted me as a liar, as a fascist, as a terrorist, as a traitor, as a mercenary, and somebody who hates my own country and my own people. Of course, the family suffer. My son, he is a student now, but he couldn't understand it when he was in gymnasium period, because the mom is a mom. Yeah? But now he understands better all these things, and he's proud of me, because he understands that these attacks and this war and this really brutal attacks is not their mission, their focus is to make me to left the politics, to left the parliament, and to retire. And I repeat, this kind of meeting is very important, is very important for us, for some kind of isolated country or small country. And I expect that we must do something. We must mobilize on the global level against this authoritarian guy, if I can say this, idiot's politics, in terms of Greek idiots. And I hope you will help us. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you for your courage and for sharing that, and you are not alone, and what a call to action for this community and for everyone watching and listening. We stand with you. That is a tough act to follow, but I would love to turn back to civil society and back to you, Edwinmi, to understand better about the role that civil society can play in ensuring that tech is held accountable and that we can see some of the benefits of it without the disastrous harms that we've just heard about.
I would just take up from where she left off by saying global solidarity is really key. Still trying to like get myself just listening to your story. And again, you're not alone. Global solidarity is really important. We are dealing with a transnational crisis. And the way I think about it is that we have done treaties for human rights. We've done for tobacco control. We need to have that global treaty for regulating AI. And why it really matters is this. I think of AI like in the way you think of medicine. You could argue that it's great for society in the big picture, right? It's arguable. But when we regulate medicines, we do not wait for people to try them first. We ensure that they are tested, they go through phases of clinical trials, and then we say it's safe for consumption. But what the government is saying is that we will catch up with AI. And women are being harassed, people are taking their lives because they're getting therapeutic advice from AI, and people are actually dying. So we need to name what's happening. And so the regulations are not catching up. Right, so AI is essentially, facilitating arms at a global scale, but regulations are obsolete. So first, we need to treat it that way. The second way I think about how civil society, could respond is to make sure that the governments do the work that they are meant to do. Now, we are seeing a lot of blood legal jurisdictions, like the tool that was being used in Nigeria. The models from California, the businesses, they are in Taipei, and the usage is restricted to that country, and so they have no legal liability for whatever happens in Nigeria. And so what really matters is for civil society to advocate in very strategic ways. I think this is the time for a big strategic litigation. Everyone that has been armed, everyone that has been, done damage by AI should come together, facilitated by civil society, the same way we do for human rights, to make that case. Because I think that this case, and that's one thing that sort of resonates across this panel, is that it is not just a technology issue, it's not just a gender issue, it is all of democracy and it's all of society, and we need to give it that response.
One last, yes,
I just
please.
want to kind of like, I just want to quickly just chime in terms of regulation. Self-regulation of the industry obviously does not work, absolutely not. But I think we need to be realistic that purely external regulation will also not work because they're inventing too fast. So we need to really get to a collaborative approach when it comes to regulation. There must be some sort of incentive on both sides. I think that there is potentially more of a financial incentive for the industry, similar like it was for cybersecurity. Cybersecurity, all of a sudden, they're all over it, just purely because they understand the financial implications for themselves. Now, we as business leaders, or business leaders, even economic leaders, organizational leaders, we have the opportunity not only to wait for regulation, but also to be hands-on, of saying, when you're committing to AI, require radical transparency. Really make sure that you know how that model that you're using is built, what are their limitations, their biases. Request internal audits or commission internal audits so that you really know what is happening and where's that landing. And then ultimately it comes really down to full disclosure of telling people where are you using AI so that this is really perpetuating. That is something that we can do tomorrow already. And when you're starting to ask those model providers to do those things all the time, and your dollars confirm that maybe puts a little bit pressure on them.
Fantastic, thank you. So we've learned about how it's built, the personal nature of the attacks, the scale, possible solutions, some of which we can incorporate and start tomorrow. Another call to action. I think we're way over time, although we can't see the time up here, which is a challenge. I'd love to finish on a kind of a note of hope. Let's imagine we're back here a year from now, Maria, and I'm going to ask you also, Marinika. Given the pace of change we're talking about, what do you hope to be able to say on this topic next year?
Well, I think what we have already seen this year is that we need everybody together. We need the politicians, we need civil society, we need businesses. And I think next year I would like to see that we all agree that the rights are really there to help and uplift everybody, including those who are in the politics, to make the most out of it rather than the other way around. So that human rights is really the word for all the things we do in the area of AI and international cooperation as well.
Actually, I'm going to go to everyone. Natalie.
Yeah, for me it is, I would love to see really content creator identification, digital, almost like digital fingerprints on every piece of content, so that we know, is it artificially generated, was it generated by a human being, and really that content digital fingerprint should really follow so that you can identify who generated content, and then I can decide if I trust it or not, and then I can also make sure that someone like you is safe of it, and we can prosecute those people who do bad.
Awesome. Renika.
I hope that we will present the first positive and good result of our global mobilization.
Fantastic.
And I think it's enough.
I would like to see a level playing field where someone in Lagos has the same regulation and protections as someone in London.
Well, thank you all so much. We could continue this. This is a fantastic panel. What an honor.